I feel personally attacked. Hey! Happy April Fools! Because we could all use a little levity right now, I thought in the spirit of April Fool's Day, we would watch an episode of The Office. Specifically, we're going to be watching Season 3, Episode 16, Business School. This is when Ryan takes Michael to his business school for extra credit to talk about the business of Dunder Mifflin's paper. I'm a project manager at a construction company. I do enjoy reading about management and stuff like that. I thought we could take this as a little bit of a fun learning lesson to see exactly what we can learn from the management style of Michael Scott. I have a feeling that this is mostly going to be a lesson in what not to do, but I figured it'd be worth a shot anyways. If you like this kind of reaction video, let me know. Let me know in the comments down below. And I hope you have a really nice April Fool's Day. And here we go. So at this part of the episode, Michael asks Dwight what the best advice Michael ever gave Dwight was. And Dwight responds by saying that the best advice Michael ever gave him was, don't be an idiot. He goes on to explain, saying, if I'm about to do something, I wonder to myself, would an idiot do this? And if the answer is yes, then I don't do it. Obviously, that's the punchline to a joke, but it actually reminds me of a story. I was at a business dinner. I was certainly the low man on the totem pole at this dinner table. And I was about 27 at the time, and one of the guys was this high-powered banker type. And he had, what seemed like the lifestyle. A lot of that stuff can be a facade. But this guy seemed to talk the talk and walk the walk. So I saw an opportunity for a learning experience for myself. So I asked him, hey, I'm really trying to orient myself for success. I read a lot of books about business. I love studying successful people and seeing what worked for them. And basically I wrapped up by asking him, do you have any advice you could give me at the age of 27 that you wish you got at 27? And he goes, yeah. He leans in and he goes, don't f*** it up. So that was a learning experience. When really, okay, I'm speaking about from an undergrad perspective. Michael has so much more practical experience. I didn't go to grad school for business. I don't have an MBA. I got my bachelor's degree in business administration. And I've taken what I've learned from that and tried to apply it in the real world. And what you learn very quickly when you leave business undergrad is that you've been learning everything in a vacuum. You can learn all these lessons, you can understand all these principles, you can, be taught these theories and see how they apply in the real world. You can read case studies, but then once you're in the real world, you realize that now is the time to really shine. Now is the time to put up or shut up. A lot of people have the feeling that talk is cheap. You can read as many books as you want. You can learn all the lessons you want from a classroom setting, but it's worthless until you put it into action. And this is something that I've thought about a lot because I've seen some really brilliant people both at my company and in surrounding work environments, and they can be really smart, but you can have the most brilliant person become ineffective if they're not motivated to apply their learnings, if they're not motivated to work. If they don't have the motivation to put the work in, then nothing's going to happen. What will happen, if there's a person who is 60% as smart as them, but twice as motivated, that less intelligent person will go leaps and bounds farther than the most educated business person out there who isn't motivated to make it happen. I've seen it happen a couple times. In a way, it's reassuring because it makes me second guess myself less. I try to educate myself as much as I can, but I don't know everything. I'm 30. I've only been in the working world for a decade now. I work with a lot of people who are way, way, way more experienced than me, but I try to apply what I know and make progress happen that way. You never have to be the smartest person in a room. One of my personal favorite sayings is, if you are the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. That means that, you don't have anything to learn from the people in that room because they're all learning from you. You should always have something to learn from the people in the room. So that's something that I do like to live by, and I always try to understand that I don't know everything, and I try to continue my education in practical experience. You can learn a lot from work. I don't have an MBA, and that's something that I don't have a lot of misgivings about right now. Maybe in the future I'll want to get my MBA, but right now, in my line of work, I don't necessarily have a need for it. My company doesn't have a need for me to have an MBA. I don't have a lot of misgivings about that. So Michael is in a good position. He has the real education, which is the practical experience of working in the real world. It's interesting because, like, in this car right now, you have Ryan as the book smart guy who's going to business school, but he doesn't have the experience. And you have Michael is the street smart guy who has all the practical experience and doesn't have the book learning. But Michael is in the better position. He has more of an education than Ryan. Never doubt yourself for not being the smartest person in the room. If you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room because people are learning from you and you're not learning anything. Never get frustrated with yourself if you feel unintelligent. You should be frustrated with yourself if you don't learn from people around you. That's when you should be frustrated from yourself. If you feel content, if you feel like, nah, I don't have anything to learn from this person, you're probably wrong. You can learn a lot of stuff from everybody. Okay. Okay. All right. So Michael asks for a student's book and rips out all the pages and says, you can't learn from a book. Replace all these pages with life lessons. I hope this doesn't undermine everything I just said. I mean, I still believe in everything I just said, but Michael just presented it, like a total jerk and ruined this student's textbook. Wow, okay. I feel personally attacked. Listen, just because he presents something in a stupid way doesn't mean it is stupid. You can learn from books. I love books. Don't rip the pages out of your books. It's April Fool's. Also, before, I didn't talk about the fact that Michael has this blind faith in his company's product. Michael is somewhat of a holdout from an older era, and these students are asking him about what would you change to adapt. I've certainly seen managers who have that blind faith in their business model because that's what they knew. That's what they had worked with in the past and worked well enough for them through the 80s and 90s, and now things are changing. There certainly are managers who are content to stick with their old business model to their detriment. There's still a demand for paper, so it's not like paper is ever going to be entirely wiped out. But in this example, hey, how are you going to hedge against the increasing paperless aspect of the new technological world? Michael says that you can't replace the value of writing on paper, and everybody types on their laptops. It's great comedy. What you would look for in that sort of situation is you would talk about how you're improving the customer purchasing experience, offering online services, things like that. Herfindahl Index. We're gonna do some Googling. Herfindahl Index is a measure of the size of firms in relation to the industry and an indicator of the amount of competition among them. Well, hopefully the Herfindahl Index went up since the merger. So if you're a 1, then you're a monopolistic company in an industry, and if you're, 0.25. Hopefully the Herfindahl Index of Dunder Mifflin went up since the merger. They absorbed a company, and as a result, they are larger in that industry. They're a bigger fish in the same pond. So hopefully that Herfindahl Index went up. Thank you, the office, for teaching me about a metric I didn't know. Just thinking about this abstractly, somebody in Michael's position would want to keep Dunder Mifflin operating well. He's incentivized to do so. He wants to keep his job. He wants the business to stay around. They keep trying to draw this parallel between everything going paperless being Dunder Mifflin's downfall. That's just not how it would be. Obviously, low demand would be very bad for a business. Dunder Mifflin can rescale its clients and its local markets to fit their overhead and everything. Like, I know people who work in small software development firms, and they're like a David And there are plenty of Goliaths in that industry, and companies need to find their niche to stick around. I won't divulge what that small software development firm does, but they definitely have a niche, and that niche is what keeps a small David around when there's 5 Goliaths, or however many other Goliaths there are in the tech sector these days. There's plenty of Goliaths. So just because Dunder Mifflin is small is not a reason that they would go under in a few years. And also, the lowering demand for paper in and of itself, obviously it's not good, but I don't buy that would be the downfall of the company in 5 to 10 years. Obviously it's bad, but that's when you would get into differentiation, getting into your own niche, things like that. Easier said than done. But hey, April Fools. That's hilarious. That is exceptionally funny. It speaks a lot to Michael's character. Obviously it's not true, though more often than not, it feels true. A lot of the most invested business people take business exceptionally personally. I'm not going to advocate that that's what people should do in order to become better business people, but you'll find that the harder you work and the more time and effort you sink into something, you're always going to take it more personally than somebody who just kind of floated through it. To be an ideal business person learning from this situation, no, business is not always personal. People are going to be motivated to go where there's more money. Businesses are going to make decisions on a financial basis. It's not always personal, but a lot of the time it will feel personal. That's a hilarious way to phrase it. Yeah, that's just Michael being Michael. It does kind of shed some light on Michael's character. Obviously, he takes everything at the office very personally. He's always clamoring for, the adoration and the affection of his co-workers and everything. He takes work exceptionally personally. It explains a little bit about how Michael's brain works. We see the repercussions of Michael's bad management style here, where Ryan apologizes for ever having suggested that Dunder Mifflin might go out of business. That's a great example of Michael taking things way too personally. Constructive criticism should always be welcomed in a work environment. And if Ryan has those qualms about the, good standing of Dunder Mifflin, as a manager, I would certainly want to be aware of those, and I would welcome that discussion to see, to get that feedback from him. Michael obviously takes it exceptionally personally and doesn't learn anything from it. So that's a bad management moment right there. Michael says that a good manager doesn't fire people, he hires people and inspires people. That's like almost a good thought. It's not entirely a good thought. I've heard the saying, don't hire for aptitude, hire for attitude. You can always teach aptitude afterwards. Which what that means is don't necessarily hire only the person who knows exactly the job that they're going to be doing if their attitude isn't proper for it, if they don't have the motivation to do it well. It goes back to that book learning thing. You can have all of these books memorized, and if you don't apply it well, then it's useless. So hire for attitude. You can always train for aptitude later. Hire for the intangible things that you need, because those can't be learned. You're going to have a much harder time retraining somebody's personality. It's always better to hire somebody and teach them how to do their job when they have the intangible personality strengths of a good employee. If you hire somebody who knows exactly how to do the job, but they don't have the right personality type for it to do it effectively for you, then you're going to find yourself in a really bad situation. Michael's saying a good manager doesn't fire people. That's not necessarily true. If there are poison apples in your organization, you're going to want to get rid of those. A good manager should hire people and inspire people. So 2/3 of what Michael said is sensible, but the first third wasn't. He's having this internal monologue questioning what he's doing. He's working for a company that, one of his employees says is going to disappear in 5 to 10 years. So he's having that, self-doubt internally. And he comes to Pam's Art Show and he's proud of what he sees, not only because she did it, but because of the subject material. It's a painting of their building, and he's proud of it. He's proud of his work. It's a little misguided, Michael's, pride in seeing the building and stuff, because it doesn't address the underlying flaws in Dunder Mifflin's business model. But it makes sense for the show. It's a nice way to put a bow on everything after a 22-minute episode. And it also satisfies Pam's needs. She, put herself out there. She put her art out there. And nobody, recognized that it took courage for her to do that. And Michael shows her the respect and the appreciation that she was looking for. In that sense, Michael is a good manager for doing this on his personal time. This was after the office closed. He just had an argument with Ryan. he had this argument with Ryan, and then he drives across town to be at Pam's Art Show. Like, Michael actually cares. He's a very good manager in that sense. I would say that's above and beyond, and that shows that he does personally care for the well-being of his employees. In summary, Michael is good at some of the human elements of being a manager. He's obviously ingested some theoretical business lessons along the way, but he has a hard time internalizing them. What I would take away from this is that, yes, Michael is actually right where book smarts are definitely not everything in the workforce. It's mostly about motivation. And if you're a manager, you definitely want to hire for motivation, and you can always teach that book smart stuff after the fact. That's why you have companies, paying for employees MBAs and stuff, right? All in all, solid episode of The Office. Hope this was a fun way to enjoy your April Fool's Day. And if you enjoyed this, please give it a big old like and subscribe because it really helps the channel grow. If you enjoyed this, please share it with a friend. We're trying to grow the channel, so please spread it around. If you enjoyed this content, then please share it with a friend who you think would find this interesting as well. I'll be back. I'm excited for the next video. I have something in mind that I think is going to be a lot of fun as well. I hope you guys all have a great April Fool's Day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.